Hey, my more brothers, back again. And this is in response to a video, a live stream that I was actually in the chat for by MGTOW Universe. And he was talking about ChatGPT. And in the video, he played a discussion that me and him had maybe 5-6 years ago about automation, AI, and automating things, right? He's a programmer, actually a very good programmer. And what he was talking about is about how automation is good in offloading simple tasks or seemingly simple tasks to hire, more and more automated systems so we don't have to think about them. And back then we were talking about programmers and the way that programming languages have been so automated and so higher level that, when I was telling him, I think you're turning programmers into script kiddies, where the rank and file programmer does not have to go through computer science and learn math and all this kind of stuff. He can just learn how to fill in the blank, teach programming like a trade. He doesn't have to understand all the esoteric design elements of problem solving or theory, right? Which is something that MGTOW Universe actually went through. He actually did that. He did all the esoteric design work and theory and stuff like that, took the math, stuff like that. He became a computer scientist. And even back then, I asked him, I said, okay, so when the system breaks down, who do they call? He said, they call me. And I get a lot of questions. I said, why? Because at some point, there's an error that they can't find. And they don't have the background of the problem solving or the theory that I have, because I have the math, so I can actually go in, figure out what it is, the problem is, correct it, and patch it, right? With script kiddies or the rank and file programmers can't, because they all they know is fill in the blank, right? We used to call that a script kiddie back in the 90s. If you weren't a computer scientist, you didn't know the theory, you couldn't write this stuff from either C or whatever the lower level language was, they called you script kiddie. You basically took a script that somebody else created, you filled in the blanks, and you applied it to a patch. A lot of script kiddies broke into computers like that. There was some guy somewhere that was a higher level computer scientist, an IT scientist. He would write a program that would do a certain thing, right? And the script kiddies would actually take these particular group of programs, patch them together to solve a problem, which is nothing wrong with that, right? But at some point, as the languages get more advanced, there's less work for you to do. And you start filling in the blanks. You start taking modules of programs and patching them together to solve a problem. Rank and file, it's okay. Well, what happens when the module breaks down? Much like your cars. Your modern car, as opposed to your older cars. The older cars were less advanced. They were simpler. They broke down more. Let's get it twisted. They did. They broke down more. But the thing is, the user could actually go in and fix it. They could actually go in and replace a part, replace the carburetor, replace the spark plugs, replace an alternator. Not quite open up the heads and take out valves and pistons, okay? Most people couldn't do that, but there's other parts of the car that it could actually fix if they're willing to put in enough effort. Whereas today, without a lot of cars without modern equipment, testing equipment, you can't fix these things. You can't fix a car without screwing up the computer inside as far as the smog detectors, right? I found it out. Hey, you change a part, okay? You change a part on the engine, you screw up the smog detector and you can't get your car registered because you altered something. A lot of your tractors now, that's what Louis Rasmus is talking about, the right to repair. A lot of these things that you buy are non-repairable. They're so advanced that only an expert from the factory or from an authorized repairman can actually repair whatever it is that's inside your computer or tractor or truck. So what you're doing is dumbing down the whole society, because all they know is I step on the gas and I turn the wheel, and the car does the rest. And so now it's getting so advanced, I can step on the wheel, give the car a destination, it drives itself. You're going to lose the ability to actually drive the car. What do people do when that happens? They start losing the ability to actually interact with their environment. They get further and further away. 90% of people would starve if the system broke down because we cannot grow our own food. We cannot find our own food anymore. That's fine as long as the system is operating at a certain level. What happens when the grocery stores don't have food? What do? It's going to take you 2 or 3 years to learn how to grow food. By that time, you're going to starve to death. It's a dumbing down of knowledge. So where am I going with this? Because I don't want to make this too long. ChatGPT. He thinks it's a good thing. So do I. I think ChatGPT is a good thing. Okay. I've used it as a research assistant. I've used it to answer questions. It cut down some search time. Sometimes it even cuts down me writing something, right? I've noticed it. Right now, I've used 2 AIs, writing AIs. And for the most part, I give it a question. I start something and it fills in the blanks, but it gives me a lot of word salad. It's not quite up to the par where I can actually trust it to write something for me. It can give me a good start. If I learn how to use the tool well enough, it might give me an acceptable result. But it's not quite at the level where it's going to actually replace me as a writer, even though I'm not a writer. But I've used it. And I've used it to experiment with it to see how far the AI has come. And it's come quite far. A lot of people haven't noticed the progression. Okay? Your ChatGPT is just an iteration agents, right? AI has actually been plugged into. AI is just artificial intelligence. It's learning, right? Just like a human being. You take a baby's intelligent innately, right? But all the parts are not hooked up. Its environment and its parents and other people in its circle have to fill in the blanks, right? You got the basic program, but how to eat, how to walk, how to speak, the language that you use, how to interact with your environment is all taught to you by the people that are around you, either directly by telling you, by teaching you, or passively by you watching them. This baby AI, that used to be a baby, I think it's more like a toddler, maybe not even a toddler, it's a little better than a toddler now, it's like a 7-year-old, has been watching you. The basic programming, I actually told MGTOW Universe where to look. It's called the Insular case, right? Your search AIs, your search agents, or actually come from the program that Insular came up with to actually research law cases. And then the government took it over and basically gave it to Yahoo and Google to work on, right? So all your bots that actually go out and search for terms and bring back search terms, those are the little baby AIs, that were actually going out and bringing back things, the bots as a whole. So they started learning with search terms and what you put in and bringing back information and learning the information that people put on the line. They learned from that. You have people in the labs programming it directly, like for playing chess, for playing Go, for doing teaching medicine or learning medicine, how to research medical terms. Then it became lab technician, looking at slides and detecting things like cancer and diabetes, what have you. That's what you have now, right? You have some lab technicians looking at slides when it's questionable, okay? When you want to verify something, but for the most part, when you take a blood test and in 30 minutes comes back, that's an artificial intelligence agent actually looking at your blood and detecting something or not detecting something, and they come back with a result. Now, the result they come back with might have to be checked by a human being, but for the most part, the vast majority of tests are done by artificial intelligence. That's the medical AI moving up the scale. Now, medical AIs are actually checking in on doctors and going behind doctors' work. I know that because my father would get an email saying that they missed something. That's the artificial intelligence actually catching something that the doctor didn't. So the AIs have gone from doing research online for medical terms to actually looking at blood work and detecting diseases, to actually looking at slides and x-rays to detect diseases, to actually catching doctors misdiagnosing something. They're at the doctor level now. ChatGPT, same thing. Started out as students searching for something and bringing back results. Started out looking at your buying preferences and pushing ads to you and seeing what you liked and what you didn't like, what you buy, what you didn't buy, what ads that you liked, what ads you didn't like, whether it's Google, Facebook, Yahoo, whatever. Even sometimes on TV, your smart TVs do the same thing. Your games do the same thing. So it moved from that to what? Your smartphone. What you search for, your preferences, where you go, what do you eat, what are your habits, where do you shop, what kind of clothes you buy, right? It's a baby looking at you, learning from you, following you around. What does this person do? They speak this language. What do they eat? Went from that to what? Your assistants from Amazon and from Google. Your assistants. And it started listening to you, listening to your language, listening to what you talked about, listening to the questions that you asked. And sometimes, whether you know it or not, they were always listening. They turn on to hear the language. If they understood, they hit a check, they process it. If they didn't, they send it to a human. What is this? What is this person saying? What are they asking for? What are they talking about? After it processed all this language and what people talk about, and what people think about, what people search for, human beings have habits. They have to have habits and standards of behavior to actually be a social animal. Now, this has become ChatGPT. Well, we saw this coming from 5-6 years ago when they shut down certain search bots because they're developing their own language. They were making language more efficient according to their environment, just like human beings do. Now, ChatGPT is still basically a research agent, but an advanced one. You ask it a question, it processes your language, it compares it against all the other people that have searched for the same thing and spits back a result. Or you give it a certain parameters, like one example he gave is writing a children's book. I want to write a children's book with these elements in it, right? So it's going to go out and it has a database of all the children's books that have been created in the last 50 years. It basically scans all these books, looking for your parameters, takes the language algorithm and how people commonly use language, and it spits it back at you. But spits it back at you in nanoseconds. And by you saying yay or nay, whether it's a good job or not a good job, it learns. It's learning to be and think like a human. It's not human. It's artificial. Just like your artificial sweetener is not sugar. And there's good parts to the artificial sweetener, like no calories, you have to use less of it, that kind of stuff. There's the downside to the artificial sweeteners. I can't drink them. There's only so much I can drink because it's a neuro exciter. Okay, man, I will go into if I drink too much of it, I will actually shut down and actually go into almost like a fit. I can't drink too much of it. It affects my nervous system. There's a downside to the artificial sweetener because it's not real. It doesn't react to the body the same way sugar is. It mimics sugar. Same thing with AI. There's something that are actually more efficient with the artificial intelligence, right? It writes, how it does things, its speed. But the downside is, as it learns, it's going to replace you. Like MGTOW Universe said it's going to replace teachers. An AI agent is actually going to teach a class. And students are actually going to use AI agents to actually write papers. And they won't get detected for cheating. And they won't. Because if the goal is to write the paper and get a grade, then fine. A ChatGPT will do that. It'll be good enough with some tweaks to actually write the paper for you. It'll be good enough to actually pass these classes. It'll be good enough to get through college with a grade and be certified. But it won't give you an education. That's the missing component. It can give you the information, but it can't teach you. That's what I was trying to tell MGTOW Universe about AI teachers or kids learning from an app. Because I had to do this for 2 years with my grandson and my grandsons. He cannot learn from an app the same way he learns from a human. The goal is for taking a writing class, taking any class, right? Writing the essay is not great on how you write the essay. It's actually how much of the information from the class did you absorb? How much of this information sunk down into your psyche so that it is part of your memory, a part of your toolkit in your head that you can actually recall it and use it? What kind of meaning did this class or this information give to you so that you can actually think and actually apply it and actually take it as tools to actually extrapolate that and make it into something new, something else? Give you an example. There's a difference between the information being available. You actually extrapolate the information and actually finding what you're looking for, right? My cousin saw a case on 60 Minutes and he wanted to find out the law firm that actually not prosecute the case, but actually help the lawsuit. The lawyers actually helped the client sue for the damages in this case, right? He couldn't find it. So he calls 60 Minutes to find out who the lawyer was in this case, who the lawyers that represented the plaintiff, I think the plaintiff in this case. And he told me he couldn't find it. So I told him the parameters to search for. He still couldn't find it. He couldn't analyze the results. So I punched in the same parameters, found the results, showed him exactly what he was looking for. I did it within like 3 minutes. I was trained to think. There's a reason that kids need to go to the library, as he put it, go into the stacks, as he put it, use the Dewey Decimal System, go to the cards, and struggle to find the information. Like building the muscles, training you to think instead of push buttons. That training allows me to cut down the terms, assess the information, and find what I'm looking for. It took longer then because I didn't have the tools. But the thing is, I had the algorithm in my head, had the knowledge in my head, had the muscles built. So now that I have the tool, it takes me a lot less time to actually find what I'm looking for. Is ChatGPT a good thing? Yes. Would it allow our children to actually go through school easier? Yes. Will it educate them the same way? No. It will actually start dumbing down our children. Our children are already dumbed down with the smartphones, with the search assistants, with all the other accoutrements. Is it making better people? Is it making smarter people? It's creating a gulf. Because the people that still want to put in the effort using the tools will get way smarter. And the people are just looking for a grade will start to get dumber. Because the old tools that forced them to think, forced them to be smart, forced them to actually start using that muscle they call a brain will atrophy. Those tools won't work anymore because they can bypass those strictures, those tools, those tests, those exercises. And lastly, what he was saying is that you're going to have to go into IT to stay ahead of the curve. The thing is, I want to tell him, you cannot learn faster than these machines. The machines just have not gotten to you yet. A friend of mine said that a robot could not climb a steel grater and weld. He said it can't replace the human because the human can actually climb a steel girder, access the welder, the welding joint juncture, actually repair or weld a juncture. He said a robot couldn't do that until I pulled the picture out and showed them a robot that was actually doing the same thing that he said that it couldn't do. It's just a matter of time. Even for a programmer, even back then, when in the 90s, a lot of your code was not written by hand, okay? It wasn't. Even back then, a lot of your computer chips were not designed by etching out a circuit. A lot of it was computer assisted. Back then, it was 20%, then 50, then 60 to like 90. Now it's 90%. You still have to find higher level people to actually do design for the breakthroughs. But 90% of it is actually designed by artificial intelligence. You still have programmers that are actually out there doing IT, but 90% of it is actually automated now. What happens when it gets the other 10%? Nobody's safe. Your AI God is here and is learning faster than you can. I got another one coming, but suffice it to say that this is just my response to MGTOW Universe and ChatGPT. Go check out the conversation we had and his response to it. It's quite interesting, especially Cousin T-Talk. With that, I'm out of here. This is BGS.